I still remember the exact moment everything started. It was 2:13 a.m. The glow from my laptop was the only light in my small apartment. Outside, the street was silent. No cars. No footsteps. Nothing. Then I heard it. A soft sound. Not loud. Just a creak. Like someone slowly shifting their weight on an old wooden floor. I froze. My apartment was tiny. A living room, a kitchen, a bathroom, and one bedroom. I lived alone. No roommates. No pets. Yet the sound came again. Creak. It came from the hallway outside my bedroom. I held my breath and listened carefully. Silence. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Old buildings make noises all the time. Pipes move. Wood expands. But deep down, something felt wrong. That night, I barely slept. Part 2, the reason I bought the camera. The next morning, I noticed something strange. My kitchen chair was pulled out from the table. I was certain I had pushed it in before going to bed. At first, I thought maybe I had just forgotten. But then I noticed something else. My front door chain was slightly loose. I always lock the door and chain it before sleeping. Always. That day, a strange feeling followed me everywhere. I kept thinking about the sound in the hallway. About the chair. About the door. By evening, I had convinced myself of one thing. Someone had been inside my apartment. But how? I decided I needed proof. So that night, I went online and ordered a small security camera. Nothing fancy. Just a basic night vision camera that could record motion. My plan was simple. Place the camera in my bedroom. Point it toward the bed. If something strange happened again, I would finally know. Part 3, setting up the camera. The camera arrived 2 days later. It was smaller than I expected. Black. Round. With a tiny blinking red light. I placed it on the bookshelf across from my bed. From there, it had a perfect view of the entire room. I tested it. The footage looked clear. Even in low light. That night, I told myself something important. This was just a precaution. Nothing weird was actually happening. My brain was probably just playing tricks on me. Still, before sleeping, I double-checked everything. Front door locked. Windows closed. Closet shut. Camera recording. Then I turned off the lights and went to bed. Part 4, the first recording. The next morning, the first thing I did was check the footage. I expected nothing. Just 8 hours of me sleeping. And at first, that's exactly what it looked like. I skipped through the timeline. 1 a.m., sleeping. 2 a.m., sleeping. 3 a.m., sleeping. Then I saw something strange. At 3:17 a.m., the motion indicator appeared. My heart skipped. I clicked play. The room was dark. I was asleep in bed. Nothing moved. Then suddenly, the camera shifted slightly. Not much. Just a tiny vibration. Like something had touched the shelf. I leaned closer to the screen. The room stayed silent. Still. Then the video ended. That was it. No person. No shadow. Nothing. I stared at the screen, confused. What triggered the motion alert? Part 5, the second night. That night, I kept the camera running again. But this time, something felt different. I couldn't relax. Every sound made me jump. Every creak felt suspicious. Eventually, exhaustion took over and I fell asleep. The next morning, I checked the footage again. And this time, my blood ran cold. Another motion alert. 3:17 a.m. Exactly the same time. I pressed play. The video started normally. Me sleeping. Blankets barely moving with my breathing. Then, something happened. At the bottom of the frame, near the edge of the bed, a shadow appeared. It was faint. Barely visible. But it moved. Slowly. Upward. Like someone, standing beside the bed. My heart started pounding. I leaned closer to the screen. And that's when I noticed something even worse. The shadow had a shape. A human shape. Part 6, the shape beside my bed. I replayed the footage 5 times. Every time, the same thing happened. The shadow slowly rose into frame. It looked like a person standing beside my bed. But the camera never showed a face. Just darkness. A tall silhouette. Completely still. Watching me sleep. The figure stayed there for almost 2 minutes. Then something terrifying happened. The shadow leaned closer. Right over my face. As if it was examining me. My stomach twisted. I had been asleep, while something stood inches away from me. Then suddenly, the figure stepped backward. And disappeared out of frame. The motion alert ended. I stopped breathing for a moment. Because I knew something impossible. My apartment door had been locked. Part 7, checking the apartment that morning, I searched the entire apartment. Closet. Bathroom. Kitchen cabinets. Even under the bed. Nothing. No signs of anyone breaking in. No damaged locks. No open windows. Nothing. But the footage was real. Something had been in my bedroom. Standing beside my bed. Watching me. That night, I decided to stay awake. If someone came back, I would see them. Part 8, waiting. The hours passed slowly. Midnight. 1 a.m. 2 a.m. My eyes burned with exhaustion. But I forced myself to stay awake. At 3:16 a.m., something happened. The camera's red light blinked. Motion detected. But I hadn't moved. I stared at the doorway. Nothing there. Then I heard it. A soft sound. Right behind me. Breathing. Part 9, the moment I turned around, my entire body went cold. Slowly. Very slowly. I turned my head toward the dark corner of the room. The place the camera couldn't see. At first, nothing. Just darkness. Then something shifted. A figure. Tall. Too tall. Standing silently beside the wall. Watching me. And the worst part? It didn't move when I looked at it. It just kept staring. As if it had been there the entire time. Part 10, the last recording. I don't remember falling asleep that night. But the camera recorded everything. The next morning, I watched the final clip. At 3:17 a.m., the motion alert triggered again. The video showed me sitting on the bed. Looking toward the corner. Frozen. Then the camera captured something new. The figure stepped forward. Into the light. But the camera glitched. Static filled the screen. The image distorted. Then the video ended. That was the last recording the camera ever made. Because when I checked it later, the device was gone. The shelf was empty. And my bedroom door was wide open. For a long time, I just stood there staring at the empty shelf. The camera was gone. Not broken. Not fallen. Gone. My heart was racing so fast I could hear it in my ears. I slowly stepped closer to the shelf. My hands were shaking as I touched the spot where the camera had been. Nothing. No wires. No device. No explanation. Then I noticed something else. The bedroom door was open. Wide open. I was certain I had closed it before going to sleep. A cold feeling crept up my spine. Someone had been inside my room. Again. Part 12, The Footprints. I walked slowly into the hallway. The apartment was silent. Too silent. The kind of silence that makes every small sound feel dangerous. When I reached the kitchen, I noticed something strange on the floor. Footprints. Faint. Bare footprints. They were slightly wet, like someone had stepped in water. The print started near the front door, and led directly to my bedroom. My stomach tightened. But what terrified me even more was the direction of the footprints. They only went into the bedroom. There were no footprints leaving. Part 13, The Locked Door. I rushed to the front door. The deadbolt was still locked. The chain was still attached. Exactly the way I left it. Which meant one thing. Whatever had been inside my apartment, never left. I slowly turned around and looked down the dark hallway toward my bedroom. For the first time since moving there, the apartment felt unfamiliar. Like it wasn't mine anymore. Like something else lived there. Watching. Waiting. Part 14, Calling the landlord. I couldn't stay silent anymore. I called the landlord immediately. He arrived an hour later. An older man named Frank who had owned the building for years. I told him everything. The noises. The camera footage. The missing device. The footprints. At first, he looked skeptical. But when he saw the wet footprints on the floor, his face changed. He went quiet. Too quiet. Then he said something strange. "Did you check the attic?" I blinked. Attic? He nodded slowly. "There's a small crawl space above the apartments." My heart dropped. "You mean, someone could be living up there?" Frank didn't answer right away. And that silence told me everything. Part 15, The Crawl Space. The entrance to the crawl space was in the hallway ceiling. A small square hatch. I had lived in that apartment for 8 months. And somehow, I had never noticed it before. Frank brought a ladder. As he pushed the hatch open, a cloud of dust fell down. The attic above was dark. Completely dark. Frank shined a flashlight inside. At first, we saw nothing. Just wooden beams and insulation. Then the light moved slightly to the right. And we both froze. There was a mattress. An old, dirty mattress. Right above my bedroom. The crawl space was bigger than we expected. Frank climbed up first. I followed him. The smell hit me immediately. A strong, stale odor. Like sweat and damp clothes. The mattress was surrounded by small objects. Empty water bottles. Food wrappers. A flashlight. And something else. Something that made my blood run cold. My missing security camera. It was sitting right there on the floor. Pointed directly toward the small vent that looked down into my bedroom. Whoever had been living up there had been watching me. Every night. Next to the camera was a small pile of papers. Frank picked them up slowly.